The rain hit the glass like 1,000 ticking clocks counting down to something I didn't want to face. The lights of the city outside blurred into long streaks of red and gold, stretching through the storm as if time itself were melting. The air smelled like metal and forgotten secrets. My hand trembled as I lifted the old photograph again, though I already knew every detail burned into it. It shouldn't have existed. The person standing behind me in that picture, smiling faintly, almost ghost-like, had been dead for 20 years. The photograph wasn't just wrong. It was impossible. The phone rang once, sharp and sudden, cutting through the heavy hum of the rain. I didn't move. It rang again. And again. Each ring felt slower, heavier, until the silence between them turned unbearable. When I finally picked it up, I didn't say a word. A voice, low and unsteady, spoke 2 words before vanishing into static. "It's happening." Then the line went dead. I stared at the receiver, still warm in my hand. A chill crawled up my neck. I turned toward the window. My reflection in the dark glass looked back at me, but for a split second, I thought I saw another shape behind it. I blinked, and it was gone. The city outside kept breathing, glowing faintly through the rain, as if nothing had changed. But something had. I looked around my office. The room felt different, colder, distant. Every object seemed misplaced. The smell of rain, the faint hum of the city, even the ticking of the clock, they all sounded staged, like someone had recreated my life but got the details slightly wrong. I pulled the blind shut and checked the lock twice. The desk drawer was open. I was sure I hadn't left it that way. Inside, resting neatly on the dark wood, was something I hadn't seen in years, a silver lighter engraved with 3 initials, HMC. I had thrown that lighter into the river the night everything fell apart. I'd watched it sink beneath the black water and vanish. Now it was back. And it was dry. The lights flickered once. A gust of wind slammed the window open, scattering papers across the floor like startled birds. One sheet slid across the carpet, stopping against the lamp. It was a page torn from my old case notes. Across the margin, written in red ink, were 3 words: "You missed something." That was all. But it was enough. My pulse quickened. I stuffed the photograph, the lighter, and the note into my coat pocket. Every instinct told me to ignore it, to let the past rot where it belonged. But instincts don't pay the bills, and they don't erase guilt. I stepped into the hallway. The flicker of the neon sign outside painted the walls in broken light, as if the building itself were trying to warn me. Somewhere in the distance, a siren began to wail, growing louder, closer. I tightened my collar against the rain and pushed open the front door. The storm swallowed me whole. Water pooled in the cracks of the sidewalk, reflecting the glow of passing headlights. The city felt alive, watching. I could almost hear its whisper beneath the thunder, calling me back to where it all began. Someone had reopened a door that should have stayed locked. And whatever waited on the other side was finally coming through. It started the next morning, though I'm not sure the word morning fits when you haven't slept. The city was still half asleep, wrapped in fog and cigarette smoke. I sat at my desk, the same old desk where I'd written 1,000 reports that no one ever read, staring at the lighter and the photo. They sat there like ghosts with nothing better to do. I'd spent half the night trying to convince myself it was all some kind of elaborate prank, but deep down, I knew better. I'd been in this line of work long enough to recognize when something unnatural was pulling the strings. Around 8, the bell on the office door jingled, and a woman stepped in. She wore a dark coat that had seen too many winters and carried herself like someone who'd run out of time. Her eyes were tired but sharp, the kind that had seen too much and still managed to notice everything. "You're Detective Cross?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, motioned to the chair across from me. She sat, glancing around as if afraid someone might be listening. "My name's Evelyn Hart," she said. "I need your help." She reached into her purse and placed a small, sealed envelope on the desk. "It's about my brother. He disappeared 2 weeks ago. The police closed the case yesterday. They said he ran off, but he wouldn't. Not without telling me. I studied her face. Fear, grief, determination, they all fought for space there. I'd seen that look before. It usually meant the truth was hiding somewhere ugly. I took the envelope and opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. It was the same one I'd found the night before. Same scene. Same people. Same ghost behind me. Only this time, there was something new. Evelyn's brother standing beside me in the image. He hadn't been there before. My mouth went dry. I leaned back in my chair, trying to piece together what I was seeing. "Where did you get this?" I asked. "It came in the mail yesterday," she said. No return address. Just that picture and a note that said, "He found you." The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. I folded the photograph and slipped it back into the envelope. "Do you know anyone who might want to hurt your brother?" She hesitated. "He worked at the old Calder Institute. He said they were experimenting with something strange. Something about time and memory. But after he told me, he said he'd made a mistake. He was scared." She looked down at her hands. "The night before he disappeared, he called me. He said, 'If anything happens to me, find the man with the lighter.'" My blood froze. I turned the silver lighter in my palm, watching the faint reflection of my face twist in the metal. "And you thought that man was me?" I asked quietly. She nodded. "Because of this." She pulled out another piece of paper, a copy of an old newspaper article. My name was in the headline. A case from years ago. The same case that ruined me. The same one that ended with someone dead and a lighter sinking into the river. She looked at me like I was her last hope. I should have turned her away. I should have said no. But instead, I found myself saying, "I'll take the case." She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. When she left, the office felt emptier than before. I sat there, staring at the rain sliding down the window, wondering if I'd just stepped back into the same trap I barely escaped the first time. I went through the old files, notes, and photos from the Calder Institute, half of them classified, half burned. There were patterns I couldn't ignore. The missing brother, the photograph, the lighter, and the message, they all pointed to one place. That night, I drove across the city to the Institute's ruins. The building stood silent on the edge of the river, abandoned, surrounded by fog so thick it felt alive. The front doors were chained shut, but the side entrance hung loose. Inside, the air smelled like dust and electricity. Broken glass crunched under my boots. I followed the faint hum of something mechanical deeper into the darkness. Then I saw it, a light flickering in one of the lower labs. Someone had been there recently. On the floor lay a torn lab coat with the name Hart stitched into the collar. Beside it, a recorder. I pressed play. Static hissed, then a trembling voice. "If you're hearing this, it's too late." They found a way to trap moments, to hold them still. But something went wrong. It's watching us now. Don't trust the picture. The tape ended abruptly, leaving only the sound of my own breathing echoing back from the walls. I turned off the recorder, my pulse heavy in my ears. The storm outside had stopped. The silence was so thick it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Somewhere behind me, a door creaked open on its own. I turned slowly toward the sound, every muscle locked tight. The door at the end of the hall swayed slightly, its hinges groaning as if something unseen had just slipped through. My flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied, cutting a narrow path through the dust and darkness. The air was colder now, sharp enough to sting the lungs. I stepped forward, boots echoing against the concrete floor. The deeper I went, the more the building seemed to breathe, the walls expanding and contracting with faint whispers that might have been wind, or might not. The corridor ended in a circular chamber lined with old screens and machines that looked half melted, half alive. Symbols I didn't recognize were carved into the walls, circles within circles. In the center stood a single metal chair with restraints still fastened tight. as if the last person who sat there had never left. On a nearby table lay another photograph. I hesitated before picking it up. It was me again, standing in that same room, but this time I wasn't alone. A man was seated in the chair, Evelyn's brother. His eyes were open, but there was no life in them. I swallowed hard, scanning the image for clues. In the corner of the photo, written faintly in ink, were the same initials from my lighter, HMC. My pulse quickened. I checked the walls, the ceiling, anywhere a camera might have been hidden. Nothing. Whoever had taken these photos was close, and they wanted me to see them. I turned toward the exit, but something else caught my eye, a faint reflection in one of the broken monitor screens. For a split second, I saw movement behind me, a human silhouette flickering like a bad transmission. I spun around, gun drawn, but the room was empty. Only my own shadow stared back. I ran my hand along the nearest console, brushing off a layer of dust. A label beneath it read Project Mirror. I found a small terminal still powered, its screen glowing weakly. Lines of corrupted text scrolled by, fragments of research logs, numbers, and names. One line repeated again and again, "Time is not a river. It's a room." Before I could process what that meant, a high-pitched tone filled the air, and the monitor flashed white. I stumbled back as the screen displayed an image, live footage from somewhere else in the building. Evelyn Hart was standing in a dark corridor, staring straight into the camera. Her face was pale, her expression blank, but her lips were moving silently. I leaned closer. The screen flickered, then cleared just long enough for me to read the words she was mouthing. "He's behind you." The image vanished. The power cut out. The whole building sank into silence so deep it pressed against my eardrums. I turned, aiming the flashlight into the black. Nothing moved. I could hear only the faint drip of water somewhere far off and the sound of my own heartbeat pounding like a drum. I forced myself toward the stairwell, every step slower than the last. Something about the institute felt wrong, like the angles didn't line up anymore, like I was walking in circles even when I wasn't. On the third floor, I found an office door half open. Inside, papers were scattered across the floor, blueprints, formulas, photographs, all centered around one name, Detective Marcus Cross. Mine. Every file listed my old cases, my clients, my address. Someone had been tracking me for years. And at the top of the pile, stapled to a report from the Calder Institute, was a note in the same red ink as before, "You're part of it." My stomach turned. I sat down hard in the old chair, the weight of it all pressing down until breathing felt like effort. Every memory of that night 20 years ago clawed its way back, the river, the gun, the lighter sinking beneath the surface. What if it hadn't ended? What if the experiment had never stopped, and I'd been living inside its echo ever since? A distant sound broke through my thoughts, footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming closer from somewhere down the hall. I raised my weapon, flashlight trembling in my grip. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. I waited, silent. Then a whisper slipped through the crack, so soft I almost thought I imagined it. "You missed something." I lunged forward, yanking the door open, but the hallway was empty. Only the smell of ozone lingered in the air, sharp and unnatural. Then I saw it, etched into the floorboards beneath the flickering light, a perfect circle with the initials HMC in the center, still wet as if just drawn. I stepped back, pulse hammering in my ears. I didn't know if I was chasing a killer, a ghost, or the remnants of a machine that had learned how to dream. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever this was, it wasn't done with me yet. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the circle carved into the floor, the initials burning in my mind like a wound that refused to heal. The rain had stopped, but the silence it left behind was heavier than thunder. The city seemed slower, emptier, as if the storm had taken something with it. I sat at my desk with the lighter and the photograph lying side by side, 2 small pieces of a truth too big to understand. I went through the Institute's archives again, through corrupted files, torn reports, and fragments of conversations recorded on decaying tapes. They told a story no one was ever supposed to read. The Calder Institute hadn't just studied time. They had tried to capture it, freeze it, shape it into loops. They believed that if you could trap a moment long enough, it would start to think, to remember, to live on its own. They called it Project Mirror. Every subject they tested had vanished within days, minds locked inside reflections, echoes repeating until nothing human was left. The initials HMC appeared on every document. Harold M. Calder, the founder, a man who supposedly died before the project even began. But that wasn't the part that stopped my breath. The deeper I dug, the clearer it became that one of the final test subjects had been me. Subject MC. Every file lined up, the dates, the case, even the photo. I read the notes again and again, hands shaking. Subject exhibits residual awareness of duplication. Memory loops stabilized. Simulation boundaries intact. The words blurred before my eyes. I checked the file timestamp. It was dated only 3 days ago. That was impossible. I hadn't been near the Institute in 20 years. I looked up from the papers, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. The air in the room shifted, the light bending like heat on asphalt. My reflection in the window moved half a second too late, a faint delay, like a broken film reel catching up. I stared at it until my pulse slowed, until I wasn't sure if it was me staring back or something wearing my shape. I turned away, but the reflection kept watching. Then it smiled. My phone rang, sharp and shrill, cutting through the silence. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The voice that had haunted me since the beginning didn't need a phone to be heard anymore. It was inside, whispering the same 2 words it always had. It's happening. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. I looked around the office, the same walls, the same desk, the same lighter, but it all felt staged, like a set built to look familiar. Maybe that's all it had ever been. Maybe I was nothing but a memory repeating itself, a piece of someone else's experiment left running long after the world had moved on. Still, I needed to see it end. I stepped outside. The streets were slick and shining, the puddles reflecting everything twice, like a mirror that refused to stay still. I walked with no destination, the sound of my boots echoing through the empty blocks. Somewhere, a bell rang, or maybe it was the phone again. I didn't turn back. I pulled the photograph from my pocket. The figures had changed once more. Now there was no one standing behind me, only me, sitting at my desk, holding that same photograph, trapped in the same moment forever. I struck the lighter, watched the flame catch the edge of the photo, and held it until the paper curled into ash. Smoke rose and vanished into the night, carrying the last proof that I'd ever existed. The air was still. The city held its breath. For a heartbeat, I thought I heard footsteps, faint and distant, fading toward the river. Then, from somewhere I couldn't name, a whisper drifted through the quiet, soft, almost kind, almost human. You missed something. And then it was gone. Only the rain began again, gentle this time, washing the world clean for whoever came next.